Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today with conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen and follow and subscribe on social media. Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. So, you know what? Welcome to the Dear Business Coach podcast. Jineen R. Huff, how are you today?
I am good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you. I know I actually tried to pick one area, and that's really hard for me to do, but you're the best person to help me with what it is that I am trying to figure out about your expertise, and like what are the best questions to glean, what are the best questions to get to here with you to maximize my time with your background. And basically I could read your titles, but I also have some notes from my assistant here. So I want to see what you think about this. Jineen R. Huff is a nurse resilience strategist, speaker, and author with over 20 years of experience in healthcare, including working as an anesthesiologist. But her expertise didn't come from textbooks alone. After experiencing burnout so severe it nearly led to a stroke, Jineen transformed her personal struggle into a mission, helping healthcare professionals and caregivers build resilience before they reach the breaking point. And her work has never been more critical, with 60 to 70% of new nurses leaving the profession within just 2 years, and healthcare workers across the board facing unprecedented challenges. Jineen is on a mission to help 1 million people who are suffering in silence from burnout. And I was pleased with that. How do you think I did with that description?
I thought you did really good, but I just want to clear up one thing.
Yeah.
I'm a nurse anesthesiologist. So I just want to clear that up because I don't know who's going to hear it now or on the replay, but I just want to make sure. And plus, it is CRNA week. So like nurses have nurses week, nurse anesthetists have their own week. And so that is currently this week. So I want to be championing my profession. And I think you did a great job. I've done a lot. It's been over 20 years. And I do have that mission of 1 million people no longer suffering in silence and burnout, and want to push this resilience message wherever it needs to lead to help people.
Oh, well, you have carved out time today to share important. I almost want to say values. That's not even really the best word. I think you have your work is necessary, and this is something that I wonder about in your field. About I worry about people, and I shared some of that with you when we met. So I'm thinking about so many different people and so many different roles. I mean, how did you even try to figure out who your audience was when you started thinking about your message?
It's funny. I have been on multiple platforms where people always ask me that question. And I started speaking to the people who were me in those stages. And so I am a nurse. So I started speaking to the nurses. I was an overwhelmed mom. So I speak to those. I was a high achieving woman in perfectionism and burning out. As I said, like you said it, I almost had a stroke before the age of 40. So I started speaking to those people because I remember I was suffering in silence. And that's how I found my target audience, by speaking back to the people who were me once upon a time, to help them. So if that helps you out, it's pretty much going back for the people who were me, those remnants. And it's hard because when you do have a business, you really do want to target your audience. And sometimes you are kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, but what you notice is your tribe will find you. So meaning you'll find out who really understands or vibes with your content, which was me with a book, which was me with a podcast, because we met on a podcast platform where we were talking about how important podcasts are for our growth and for getting our message out. So that's kind of where it started for me. And then it just grew. and then it niches down as you go because you start to learn more about your audience because you ask questions like, what do you do for a living, or what? And so then I just started to understand more about my community, and I started to serve them more because I understood their issues and filling in the gaps.
So, am I understanding this right? That podcasting helped you think to yourself, this is how I can get my message to as many people as possible.
Yes, as we said on that same platform that me and you shared, it was that visibility is very important, but you have to lean into what works for you. And so for me, I know one of my gifts is my voice. And I knew that podcasting was a way for me to do it where it didn't feel hard. And I also knew at some point, especially when you do have podcasts, it is a very what's the word that I'm looking for? It is when the person has to be very intentional to find you. It doesn't just float to them. They have to go look for your
Mm.
podcast. They have to turn on play. They share it. So it shows that you're creating value, because I'm leaning back to you saying that I'm bringing value, but it's like the values that you bring, people are very intentional to come to that space. So it's very important to cultivate that space for them. So yes, podcast for me was my angle, and I call myself a woman in media. So like having a book and other things. So it can start at a podcast, but it can grow into so many other things.
Update, update, update. Now you can get 10 free email issues when you sign up for email at dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. Discount codes, early access, and access to the VIP page, dearbusinesscoachpodcast.com. I appreciate that vision and that viewpoint and so much, because I guess what I want to say is I appreciate how much you appreciate that, because I come from a background, I guess, a little bit that's metric based. And so people who are metric, like in sales and marketing and things, and people think about podcasting in terms of, I'm not here to ask you about podcasting, but I can't help but say what your vision is doing. What you just said is, this is a way for me to reach people. And you said cultivate that space for them, for your tribe to find you. And it's exactly it's exactly the opposite as from somebody who wants to test your sales performance, who says, now wait a minute, how many downloads did you get, how many subscribers did you get? And I know that those numbers really only represent a fraction of the people who actually see you or come across you. And so folks who actually use this medium for education and pleasure, uh I feel very strongly about, there's a whole lot of people that you don't know are listening to you. So you actually are you only really aware of a little tiny bit of people that actually come across you. So I find that really refreshing and powerful, that you inherently, you with almost without, that is fact for yourself, and so you found a place there for yourself to find expression without doubt. You're reaching people. And I wonder if you have also always been that optimistic. It's true, but it's also an optimistic point of view. Have you always known this about reaching people?
So once again, with me being a nurse for over 25 years, I'm so used to reaching people one-on-one, taking care of you one-on-one. And so I learned that when you can find a more compassionate or intimate type setting, the podcast became that, because a lot of my listeners are caregivers. They're lawyers, there's doctors, there's therapists. Like, they don't have that space to let down because they're always so used to HIPAA. Like, we say we're fine, but we're not fine. And so just to clear up, when you talk about sales and metrics, I didn't start out with that in mind. Remember, podcast is like a blue ocean strategy. It's the long game. And so when it comes to sales, I brought in thousands of dollars. I've sold multiple books, where hundreds of books sold. Like, you can grow your email list from your podcast. You can find other ways to nurture them, to bring them into your services or into your ecosystem. So I tell people, as you said, we may not start off looking for all those sell metrics that a lot of people push about, saying podcasting really isn't there, but it is a growth strategy, but it's a long game. That's not going to be something you see the results, I would say, especially if you're just starting out. Like, if you have a big name and a big brand, and of course you may see the sales right away, but it's a good nurturing point. And you can bring them into your ecosystem and they can get to know you. That's how I was able to have over 20,000 downloads. Like, I mean, you can go and start looking at the numbers, right? But you have to know your why. And so when I stood on the mission of no longer having people suffer in silence, that's when I knew I was going on the right trajectory.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at it from twofold. Yes, it's business, but are you serving your people the way that they're supposed to? And it just, for me, is fulfilling. Like, it's a fulfilling thing for me to help people, but it all started from that baby seed of being a nurse and finding my own space to find people who understood what it feels like to be high functioning burnout. Like, I've almost had a stroke before the age of 40, but I've had 2 bouts of burnout that have put me out of work 2 times. And I've had to bounce back. And that is enough in itself that I understand that it's real. And I recently wrote an article for influential women about the cost of being fine, but you're not fine. And that did tremendous numbers because people DM me, because once again, they were suffering in silence and they could recognize. So all I'm saying is, it's very important for you to share your stories, what you've been through, because it will help people, business as well.
Oh, well, that's yes, 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 yes. Yes, you're absolutely right. I heard, I know that there's some very fascinating statistics that I can't help but bring up. We've already mentioned one of them, about 60 to 70% of folks in the industry burning out in the first 2 years. And I'm curious, do you want to share how that's different? Like, if I'm coming to this information for the first time, how is this is not this is not normal. I look at that number and I think it sounds like working in a restaurant.
Right, right. So, just giving the nursing background, and I'm sure people were seeing it on the news of nurses going on strike in New York, and there was nurses going on strike in California. Like, there's so much going on with the sick care model that I feel like even after COVID-19, like, we saw such a surge of sicker people. And now that we're in this new year of 2026, I'm telling you, related to healthcare premiums going up and people choosing not to get insurance because they can't afford and life is lifing them, we have found on the healthcare side that this is going to cause more strain. And so that means we're having lower engagement, we're having lower productivity, we're having people leave the bedside, as we said, after 2 years. Now, I've been in it 25 years, but think about that. Who's going to take care of the people and who are taking care of the caregivers? Because if they leave, it costs thousands of dollars to replace one person, one nurse. And a lot of us have lives outside of that. We have families. We have people we want to care for. Like I said, almost having a stroke before the age of 40. Like, I have a child. So at the end of the day, it was having ripples at home. You know what I mean? So from just putting a bird's eye view on it, sick care models are very devastating on both sides, to the patients and to the organizations. And so for me, I've recognized that filling in the gaps, because there's 2 big gaps that I keep seeing that makes me want to do my resilience training, because that's really been my mission right now. And 2 of the biggest gaps that I find that we're having is the high functioning burnout, which I told you about, which is, I think I'm fine, but I'm not. And then they're suffering in silence. And that's really when we talk about how you have to have the permission to pause. I took a whole sabbatical last year, a whole year off of nurse anesthesia, because I needed that for me.
Right. I don't I don't think that's crazy at all, but in terms of your career projection, that's that's hard to explain. We don't have a culture in management or HR where that looks okay on your resume. And so you better have an explanation for that. It better be a baby.
Right. So that is the new term, right? Where you teach people the permission to pause, because when you come back stronger, when you come back with your nervous system regulated, most people shouldn't have to take the full sabbatical.
Mm,
That just shows that you've been high functioning. I was a high leader and top nurse in my state. So, like, for me, high functioning is my normal capacity. But what was it doing under the surface? That's why I mean, when you're fine and you're telling people that, but you're really not. And so, allowing people to speak on those things, a lot of times they do wellness initiatives that are like pizza parties and what we call EAPs, employee assistant programs, which are like therapists that they hire in to help. That's not enough.
mm.
People are struggling. And so where I'm going back to post COVID and now with the sick care model, when people not getting insurance, that means it's going to be hire people inside of these hospitals, meaning not getting beds right away. It's going to be, even if we want to talk about home health, are they even getting the support that they need to take care of people? Because some people aren't even going to be able to make it to the hospital. They're going to have to send people out to them. But do they even have enough people to do that? Like, this is a ripple. So you don't have to have the sabbatical, but you should be able to speak to what's going on with you and make it more acceptant. And most of the time, as a nurse leader myself, is speaking on being the domino and saying, the permission to pause, to me, because that's one of my trademark methods, the permission to pause, is stepping in and leading that, showing that it's okay to do that, having healthy boundaries, showing organizations that if you want your top talent to stay, we have to look at the return on investment. If we do preventative care, it's a system model, not an individual model. And I bridge the gap by doing so.
Say that again. So it's not an individual model. It's well, preventative. We're talking about preventative. Is that, did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did. If we're more on prevention and getting to a problem before it happens, then you don't have the people leaving after 2 years. You have to look at why are they leaving after 2 years. And believe
Hmm.
me, they're probably going to leave quicker than that now, because they're going to be burdened by sicker patients because they're not getting health insurance. So they're not going for their preventative care. They don't even have the insurance to do so. So that means they're coming when they're super sick.
Hmm. Now
And so
I agree with you, and I think that I have been privileged that I've had parents that value things like dental care and just some basic things. I know that's not always the case. A lot of times, something like that is considered a luxury.
mhm,
Um, yeah, so and I say that just for because I can't help but say that it's, I just, from watching people in my family and personal friendships. um and I think that I do see, I mean, I agree with the preventative model for sure. And yet I can definitely see there are folks that maybe I just will never care about that. And maybe that's not, I can't address all of that right this second. However, what I'm challenging you to help me with is when when you say, well, we're just going to have folks that end up in this emergency room or at the doctor's office when they are really sick, and that is where we really have a problem that we don't want to get to. Where Why, why couldn't we just, when I say we, why wouldn't a hospital, for example, hire, just more people? Like, why is it that more staff can't just be put in place if so many people are interested in that kind of line of work, or if that kind of line of work is a trainable line of work? It seems like that's what
could be best, right?
that's what somebody who I probably would not be friends with would want to do. And how do I think about, what is that person thinking when they think just put more people in place? Because of course that never happens. Of course that never happens.
So that's the funny thing, right? If they're leaving after 2 years, they just went through at least 2 to 4 years of training. Now, this is just talking about RN level. I'm an advanced practice nurse, so I have almost 8 years of training prior to me being done over 12 years doing it. So think about that. If they aren't staying after 2 years, So it's a retention issue. So if people are coming, it doesn't matter. Why aren't they staying? So
Mm,
you can hire more. Okay. But now what I'm saying is now your patient loads getting ready to go up and they're sicker, which means they might require more critical care, more advanced care, more stuff at home, right? Home health care is a whole thing. There's a whole thing when you start talking about geriatric care, which are elderly care, and they have needs. You know what I mean? And if they're sicker with diabetes and cardiac problems or whatever have you that are missed over time because they financially don't have it. So I'm speaking to the people with the sick care model who financially might not be able to do it. You know what I mean? And when you don't have the finances to do so, I'm privileged to have it, but I know people after taking care of patients that don't have it. And it feels disheartened because now you have increased patients that are sicker, don't have the money, but if the staff is not coming up with it, the overload of who is staying, there's burnout. Very
right.
simple. So it's not even always about pushing people through. People don't even want to become a nurse. They like hell with this. I'm going to be at home. So if you can't even have people come through and you don't even have the people who are there want to stay, or the people who are staying are burning out, so they're being sent home, right? Because they got their own health problems. Now they fall into the sick care. Like, we have to do a bridge. We have to figure out why and fill in the gaps there. And a lot of times it's not teaching them how to take care of their own selves. It is really, truly, as blanket statement as they say on the air flights, right? When you're flying, put on your oxygen mask before you put on somebody else. But a lot of times we went into the profession because we want to care for people. So I think it goes back, and I think you hit really big on this, is about even in nursing school. We are taught about sick care, give, 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 give. This is how you take care of the patients, but they never teach us how to take care of us.
Mm.
And a lot of times that same mantra, that same mental is what you do in your personal life. You are a whole human being. It is just a profession, it's just a job. And when you ask about why wouldn't hospitals just hire more, it costs over 60,000 just for one. So it's a business. Hospitals are businesses too. So they need to cut costs. They got budgets. They have different units that do different things, meaning so it sounds easy, but we need bodies. We need willing and able bodies, and we want those bodies to stay, especially if they're top talent. Because if it's you or your loved one, you want top talent taking care of you. And
I
somebody
think
that
it's you would think that you would think that top require wanting to retain top talent is the goal, and I think you poignantly wanted to highlight for me that when I was asking you about this, you said, well, okay, even if you have enough entry level folks, so we got to retain some people that are going to be the specialists. Hello. And yeah, I think, I assume that for higher level healthcare workers and specialists, there's more support and training and cushion so that you don't have burnout. Like and that apparently is a very wrong assumption.
yeah, no, no, no. And the reality is, if we don't have enough staff to go around, then it affects patient safety because now
Mm.
you have to take on more. And if you're sicker, meaning the patients are sicker, that requires more in-depth skills or specialized skills. I'm trying to simplify this for this type of podcast. Like, it requires your experience or expertise to be a little bit more advanced. And you need the more experience to be training those newcomers, because it's how you get experience or expertise is by being paired with someone who has more, right? Or now you're going to have the blind leading the blind. But if
Mm.
they're not even staying after 2 years, this is them coming in. Well, they'll never get to expertise. It's just blind, blind, blind. Like, so over time, that becomes an issue, but you still have the OGs that are hanging in, but a lot of them are retirement age. And then you have people with me where I fall in between. I'm not a newbie, but I'm not at retirement, but I've been around a long time. And you want to do other things. You don't want to work as hard, and you do want to be able to take care of yourself and be there for your family. Because one thing I had to learn after being out with my burnout is that, like, my family needs me, and I can't be bringing that stress home. blood pressure through the roof. Like, it was crazy. Like, you take on, like, when you're around a lot of patients, especially for the type of profession, like, meaning specialty that I chose, I'm around a lot of people who are stressed and going through a lot of sadness. It is very hard not to be empathetic and take on their energy and not really take it on. Like, it's hard to not do that. That's what makes you compassionate. That's what makes you want to care for them in a way to help them get better. I'm talking about people who have cancer, people who have other things, right? When I was doing advanced pediatrics, I'm taking care of people who are in the 1 in millionth percentile. And so, like, that's stress. That's stress.
Yes.
And it's internal stress. And you be trying to bridge that, but the resilience. So prevention to me is very key in helping organizations to see that if we keep the newbies coming in and we keep the top talent, your return on investment, you don't have to keep paying new thousands of dollars because you have people who are staying and want to be there and they serve your patients in a better way. And that's why I said you can look on New York right now that you got nurses striking left and right. It's a lot of strikes out right now.
Let's make sure that I get you to tell me where can I buy your latest book?
Definitely. So my book is on Amazon. It is called I Choose Me, The Intentional Guide to Never Lose Yourself Again. We are global, hundreds of copies sold and over 35 five-star book reviews. It is pretty much a tool. Some people think it's just a read through about my life. It's not. It is more set there as a guide, and it takes you through, as I say, the stages of a butterfly, because that's my logo. And so what that does is tells you what it is the cocoon work. So that would be suffering in silence. That would be the high burnout. Then we go into the cocoon where we're doing the resilience work. And then you come out as a butterfly, which would mean you then now put it into everyday life. So that is for the individual. And then I do the resilience trainings inside of speaking engagements. You see me on other things. And so that's where I really go out into the community and serve at a deeper level.
I'm glad that you said, yeah, your book is a tool and your story, and that's worth noting, because I do sometimes, think about, I love reading stories about you, that what your life is so different from mine, and we see eye to eye on a few things conceptually.
Yes.
And so there's a lot there that I would be so curious about. And sometimes I'm in the mood to read something that is a little bit of a workbook, and then sometimes, yeah, I want to hear the story, a little chicken soup for the soulish. So
Yeah.
I like that format. I think that you let me see what my notes say here. I think that you also said something that I wanted to recap really quick with you, is that if you want to, you have to take care of yourself first. We hear that. I've heard that so many different times. And the first, I mean, I personally find myself getting, my cycles of patience and burnout are shorter and shorter and shorter. Like, I have to take a little meditation nap
Your
before
calls. Yep.
meetings, and then sometimes after meetings, and my calendar is changing. I was thinking about this before talking to you, is that when I used to look at the calendar and think, okay, good, I can sort of visualize how many meetings I have today and where I need to, like, balance my energy. I think I need to start putting in different kinds of breaks. Like, I have to put on the calendar when I'm supposed to eat. And it's not that I forget, it's that I forget that how much time that takes. And it just really, really, really stresses me out when I feel like I need more than the rest of the world. Like, why does this seem to me like I'm asking too much? Why in the world would I need to put on my calendar that I need a lunch break? Isn't that really self-centered?
No, no, it's called I Choose Me. It's funny because the name of the book came from my clients. They put the subheading. I said, what should we name it? It's The Intentional Guide to Never Lose Yourself Again. And so part of when you talk about the workbook type things, these are tips that I do encourage, which are scheduling yourself, doing your power hour. So you're saying a lot of these things out loud are things that we already do. So when I say the permission to pause, that's taking a meditation time. That's booking yourself in first. Like, if you don't do that, and it's cliche, I know people hear it all the time, you must pour from a full cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. Like, it is so important that when I really got the concept that I matter. And a lot of times people feel uncomfortable to take up that space. As you said, you may feel like, why do you need to do these things? It may be different than others. A lot of people aren't saying those things. Those are the ones suffering in silence. That's how I knew I wasn't the only one. So you're not the only one. You should be blocking in food. Like, it's very important if we're working and doing stuff. Sometimes the work gets ahead of us. It's not that we don't want to eat. We were busy doing something else. So we forget to do those things. But it's important because without the nourishment, we can't really function as well as we want to. So it may seem basic, but it is so important that your foundational things, that's what goes back to my Bloom method. And that's what I teach inside of the book and in my programs, is you have to go through burnout to harmony by understanding the cycles. But the first step is believing in yourself. And it's called positive, sexy self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? And you matter. And once I started saying I'm enough, I matter, those things didn't stop me from putting those things in or meditating or doing whatever. And your permission should pause should look more like what you need.
I I want to ask you some more, but right now I have to let you help the next person today. I thank you so much, Jineen R. Huff, and that's on LinkedIn, but I choose me on Amazon as well.
Yes, that's the name of the book. All my services, if they have questions, can go to intentionalqueenjourney.com. That's where you can do that. And the resilience trainings and all that key detail is on LinkedIn. So I'm on all social media platforms. And the podcast, as you know, I'm on your podcast, and I thank you for having me. But my podcast is also available as a free tool. So you can go find all that information. And that's pretty much it. And if there's a healthcare leader or someone who wants me to come to their organization where I can help them with my resilience trainings, and they are becoming CEU ready, meaning continuing education credits, because that's very important, then book me and let's have me on your space.
Oh, nice. Yes, thank you. Okay, well, I want to have you back.
Okay, I love that. We can come back.
Well, have a fantastic week, and we'll talk next time. Thank you, Jineen.
All right, thank you.
You've been listening to the Dear Business Coach podcast. My name's Elizabeth Walker, producer and host. Don't forget to subscribe to email. Thank you so much for being here, and find one thing today to move your business forward. Contact me at dearbusinesscoachpodcast@gmail.com. And as always, you are a superstar.